Modern warfare.
Is this terrible than me?
I hope so.
So today we're going to be talking about modern warfare, the evolution of conflict, really a lot of stuff going on, crazy stuff going on in the world. And I had to bring Cam back up here, man. Expert in many things. We've been going at this for 3 years.
Y'all already
got a lot to talk about. Appreciate you coming back on, bro.
Yes, sir, man.
So we really got a whole bunch to talk about, honestly. I just want to start off by saying free Palestine, straight up.
Palestine.
Like, end occupation globally, end imperialism globally.
And apartheid globally.
And apartheid globally. There's just a lot of messed up stuff going on. A lot of war crimes being committed. A lot of egregious acts that are just going under the rug and being misconstrued to fit a certain narrative. So we're going to talk about all that today. And we're going to do it in under about 22 minutes. You've been seeing everything that's going on right now, like, you know, from Palestine to Ukraine, Congo. What's your general take on, like, some of the world affairs that are going on right now and how it's being presented in the media?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, you know, Israel-Palestine is definitely the most prevalent one. I mean, Ukraine and Russia is kind of getting put on the back burner stuff, even though we're still sending them money, still sending them that bag. But, you know, I think with Israel, Palestine and stuff, you know, obviously I am for the freedom of Palestine. I'm for the freedom of all oppressed people around the world. And, you know, I think it's so interesting with how, you know, the media has played a role in this conflict because, like, don't get me wrong. And I have to say this. I don't condone the acts of Hamas and what they did and killing innocent people. I never agree with that. But again, Hamas does not exist in a vacuum. It exists
Just like what the UN said today.
It is important to also recognize the attacks by Hamas did not happen in a vacuum.
Hamas exists because of conditions that have been created by Israel. And, you know, and what they did essentially, they gave Israel exactly what they wanted in terms of, because so much of the narrative has always been Palestinians are terrorists, Palestinians are this. There's
been a lot of, you know, mischaracterization of the people of Palestine.
Exactly.
A lot of tactics that they used during the Holocaust are being deployed now. They're calling them animals. They're calling them like
dehumanizing language.
And I think that's one of the factors of, you know, a modern genocide, honestly, because like if you look back at like Rwanda and the Rwanda genocide, like, you know, the Tutsis, or they were calling them the Tutsi cockroaches.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's like, you know, the comparisons that the Palestinian people are getting to like wolves. I don't know if you've seen the tweet, the Israeli Twitter or X account, what they had put out. They put out like this video. It was like a children's nursery of like Israel being like a bear family or a cub family.
Yeah.
And that the people that were attacking them were Hamas or like the Palestinian people, and they were wolves.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, that's contributing to the violence that people are experiencing.
And I think even with seeing like how active Israel is on social media, especially in you know, in the midst of a war, pretty much, like, you know, and again, this is another thing too. It's like it is being framed as a war, but it's like, you know, and it's like, don't get me wrong, Hamas, they in this most recent iteration, Hamas had the most they are the ones that were the aggressor in this sense. But again, Hamas was created to be a resistance force to Israel, to the IDF, because like everybody wants to talk about how Hamas killed innocent civilians and everything, and that is a huge problem that can't be condoned. But the amount of people that have been killed in Palestine over the past couple of years does not match up to like that. That was one incident. Like that, like the amount of Palestinians that have been killed just in response to that has been way more than.
I think we just crossed the threshold of like 6,000 people, and like 2,000, almost 1,800 of them are children.
Yeah, and I want to say over 1 million of them are probably way more are displaced. Like their homes have literally been. They have no home.
Facts.
Like,
people forget about that element of, you know, of war. Even if we're going to characterize this as a war. Honestly, like one of the elements that you need to look into and factor into in the casualties of war is displacing in mass or forced migration.
Yes.
Like the objective here is, you know, to rid Palestine or the Gaza Strip of Hamas, okay? You're indiscriminately bombing and sending attacks in a region with innocent civilians.
Yes.
What do y'all think will be the outcome of sending all those attacks at that area? Okay, yes, you might hit Hamas, but at the same time, you're either going to hit civilians or you're going to displace civilians.
Yes.
And you're leaving them with nowhere to go. So the outcome is death.
Yeah. And that's why like the term war and stuff too is because at the end of the day, Israel has all of the power and stuff. If they wanted to wipe Gaza off the map right now, they could have done that. And I mean, essentially they're in the process of doing that and stuff, but it's like they're also, the Palestinians are, you've displaced them from their homes, and what you were saying is like they have nowhere to go. There's no aid coming in. There's no medical supplies coming in. There's
Hospitals just failed.
Yeah, the hospital. I just saw that today. The health ministry has failed and not to mention they're bombing hospitals and stuff, like, you know, and they tried to say that they didn't, and no matter what the information was or some, it's not outside of the realm of the IDF playbook. They bombed hospitals. They bombed hospitals. They bombed mosques during the month of Ramadan and stuff. And you know, everybody wants to frame this as a Hamas thing and everything, but in the West, like, you know, in Gaza is run by Hamas, but in the West Bank, Hamas does not exist, and yet they're still bombing the people in the West Bank and stuff. So it's like Israeli apologists want to blame it solely on Hamas and stuff, but it's not. And that just shows that it's part of a much larger problem, which is, you know, this idea of, you know, the occupation, the apartheid, the Zionist rhetoric and stuff. Like, you know, it can be inherently violent, because it's like, if you're okay, that may be your belief that it's like, you know, this is our chosen land and we came back to reclaim our chosen land. But if that involves and y'all were fleeing war, y'all were displaced yourself, and that's what brought y'all to Israel in the first place. But y'all are literally copying the exact same conditions and stuff, and that's why I stand
kind of crazy.
Exactly, and that's why I have to stand with the Palestinian people, because it's like, you know, and also it ties into
to
a lot of
parallels for oppressed people around
exactly.
the world. Long story short, like, language is important. And, you know, when you're characterizing something as a war on terror or a terrorist group, it's basically counterinsurgency. So you have a whole lot more freedom with the type of methods that you can deploy. It gets really shaky because when you look at like Iraq and Afghanistan, what the United States was doing, one of their plausible deniability tactics that they used was, we don't know who's who. We don't know who's a civilian versus who's an insurgent, because anybody could be.
Yep.
Anybody could, you know, produce terror in that region. So I think that, you know, Israel, the government of Israel, is, you know, deploying a similar strategy by calling this a war, even though, you know, not everybody that is getting bombed is participating in the war. What do you think about that?
I think that has been something very interesting to see, because, you know, I think in the very early days and stuff, like, you know, I think that Israel and the IDF had a lot more support. Like, you know, like everybody was like, yeah, like this is them responding to counterinsurgency and stuff. But I think as Israel's attacks have become much more targeted, and much more just gratuitous, like, you know, they're just trying to inflict as much damage as they can.
That's what they
like,
said.
You know, I really do think that, like, you are starting to see like some of the media landscape shift more towards the side of the Palestinians, and like, you know, people are, and you know, as you have creators and stuff sharing more information about the history of the occupation, about the history of Hamas, about the history of the IDF and everything, like, you know, you are starting. I mean, and I literally saw something even today. It's like, Israel wanted to go ahead and do a full blown ground invasion into Gaza.
They still are going to do one.
Well, yeah, but I mean, but you are starting to see like even some other world leaders are saying like, oh, maybe we should halt this a bit. At least let's get some aid in there. And mind you, some of it there's definitely some of just the optics and semantics of saying like, oh, we're going to do this, because again, what is the U.S. is saying like, oh, Israel, don't do that. It's like, bro, y'all are the ones who are literally giving them the weapons.
So I did want to pivot back and ask you generally, you know, actually specifically, when you're, you know, reading through your sources and whatnot, how do you vet whether something is credible? How do you determine what sources are going to be good when you're trying to keep up to date on global affairs?
I think in specifically talking about this conflict, I've been following a bunch of people who are like on the ground and stuff. Like there's a dude, Motaz something, like he's been he's a press person, but like he's literally been in the field of Gaza. Like, I mean, some of his videos have been him literally fleeing a bomb that just dropped and stuff. He's with some of the some of the victims, some of the wounded and everything. And, you know, and so I followed a few of those people. Like me, I've been keeping up, you know, mainly with the Palestinian side. Obviously, this their information can be a bit biased and stuff. Or let me not even say a bit. It's definitely biased towards Israel and stuff. But it's like, you know, when these reports do come out about mass damage or something, and Israel tries to deny their role in it and stuff, it's like, if you follow these places, I mean, if you follow these pages and everything, it's like they're literally showing the destruction of what's going on. And like, you know, we're seeing some videos and stuff of like how these Gaza homes and everything are just simply no more. It's just simply rubble. I've seen so many videos of children being pulled out of the rubble, or like people finding their loved ones and stuff. Like this is real time reporting and stuff. It's like, I remember seeing one video. It was literally a little girl. She was around the hospital or something. Like they were bringing her mom in, and like she was maybe like 3 or something like that. And like she was just like, oh my God, that's my mom. Like I know her hair and everything. And then, you know, but it's like her mom is dead, and it's like that's her reality. This is a child who's now about to grow up without a parent and stuff because of Israel's attacks. I saw another video where it was a doctor. He was treating other people and stuff who had been bombed by Israel, and then next thing he's treating people at the hospital. Next thing, his family members come in and everything. And it's like, you know, another thing that has to be looked at is that like some bloodlines are literally being completely wiped out. Like I'm talking going back, people want to talk about anti-Semitic. One, the Palestinians are Semitic numbers, and like literally their bloodline goes back to, I mean, like literally, yeah, you know what I'm saying? And it's like, and this is also what Israel is doing. And that's why I feel like genocide is a very strong word and stuff, but it's like Israel is definitely engaging in genocidal tactics. And, you know, just part of the genocidal playbook is also like you do something and then you deny your role in it as well. Or like you use the language, like we were talking earlier about language and rhetoric and stuff like.
And yeah, so, and that's why I'm glad you brought up the language of genocide. I will say it is powerful and it is very strong. However, I think the intent of using the word genocide is to help contextualize the history of what's been happening in Palestine.
But it's not just this.
It's not just this. This is not an isolated event.
Yeah.
This is sort of the nexus or the climax of almost a century's worth, maybe more than a century.
Yeah.
Like this goes back to, you know, this is a very historical region, but It's like, you know, this is 70 years worth of, you know, aggression and violence and stuff like that. And now it's culminating to this point. But it doesn't stop here also. I think they're using the word genocide here because the actions or the outcomes following, you know, what's sort of inevitable after this ground invasion and the displacement that's soon to happen probably if somebody doesn't intervene or a ceasefire doesn't happen, is genocidal levels of, you know, death and violence. Like
absolutely
1 million, 2 million people will be displaced. And the reason for that will be because of this conflict.
Mm-hmm.
What would you call that?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, besides that, even if it doesn't lead to the displacement, if there is a ceasefire, hospitals are shut down, water is shut down. There will be a generation of kids that grow up hungry because of this, or grow up, you know, famished or malnourished. So it's like these are all associated outcomes with genocide.
Yeah, and to go off of that, another thing I want to add also is that, like, again, the Balfour Declaration happened in 1948. That's when the Israelis came to this land and everything. It's like there's 70 years ago is not that long. I mean, that's not that long ago. I mean, you know, Israel has tried to wipe out as much people as they can, but there may be some people who were here when like this happened. They were kids when this happened. And it's like they know the entire history of this story. They can live to tell the story like of what it is, and it's like that's what makes it so difficult, because even when we talk about you know, the civil rights movement here in the US and everything, and you know how people try and use black and white to convey this to make it seem like it was so long ago and stuff, but bro, Ruby Bridges, the first black woman to integrate school, she's like in her 60s, bro. She younger than my grandma. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, and it's like, again, like 1948 is a long time ago, but it's still within this generation. Like, you know, I mean, it's still, there's plenty of people. I mean, I got grandparents that was born before 1948 and everything. And like, literally, again, out in Palestine and stuff, like probably I remember seeing a stat not too long ago. It's like the life expectancy of a Palestinian is like it's not high at all. And then on top of that, there's such a it's such a young population because it's like,
and I think that's one of the most egregious things.
Exactly.
And why I'm a little bit concerned with like the ramifications of speaking out against Israel or speaking up for Palestine is like, how can you sit by and watch a population that is 40%
under the age of like 19,
under the age of 18, 17, like these are children that are going to be experiencing war. Like that's unprecedented. Like, and you know, other heinous events, and like I can speak out against this, like, and it shouldn't have no flack about it. Like people should not have to fear losing their job or like, you know, being socially condemned for speaking out against egregious acts against children or seeing blatant war crimes. The use of white phosphorus indiscriminately, the use of white phosphorus is a war crime since Vietnam.
Yeah.
Like, it's a dangerous chemical.
Bro, it will literally melt
environmentally damaging. It is dangerous. Like, it's like, you feel me? Like, you want to talk about heinous shit? White phosphorus, and Israel has deployed that. I can say that. Like, that's wrong. And there shouldn't be no flack behind that. On top of that, the indiscriminate bombing, like, without any concern for the, like, you know, collateral damage concerns. Bombing of schools, mosques, church, religious buildings, hospitals are war crimes.
Yes, and hold your thought, bro. But it's like, but that's also genocidal in and of itself. It's like even if you're not killing the people, what you're trying to do, if you're destroying all of their aspects of culture, their history, their heritage, the language and stuff, that is genocidal because you're trying to wipe out a culture
for the sake of, you know, and that's what they'll justify it, getting to Hamas, getting rid of the terrorists out of the land. Okay, so the ultimate question here is, do the means justify the ends?
Like
I don't think so. This is all about
the land. Yeah, that's why.
Hell with you know who occupies it.
Yeah,
it is a regional interest. You know, I think a lot of people get confused with, you know, why the United States backs Israel so heavily. The number one, like, you know, Biden himself, President Biden himself said it. He said it many years ago when he was a young senator, middle-aged senator. He's old as fuck now, but it's like, and then he doubled down on it this year. He said, Israel is the best investment we can do to protect the national interests and the security of America
in this region.
People don't understand what that means.
But say the second part too, though. He said if there was no Israel,
we
would have created an Israel
to build an Israel.
Yeah.
And they tried. Don't get it wrong. They tried. Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Qatar, Turkey. Every country, they tried it. They have tried to place, and there was at one point, there was an installation at every Middle Eastern country that had the United States flag on it. There was an installation on it. It got to a point where we could, it was during the Biden administration, we got out of Afghanistan because it was just too expensive and it was getting too dangerous for us to stay there. So now Israel has become that much more important because we no longer can occupy those other countries without losing American civilians, losing American soldiers, and losing a shit ton of money. We're spending hundreds of billions of dollars every year per country. Now we only got it. Here we go again. Now they only have to do it for Israel. So that's why they putting their foot down, because like Israel is the key to the rest of the region. If the U.S. can't stay in Israel, we can't be nowhere else.
Tying into what you were saying earlier, so the ceasefire is important. That needs to happen and stuff, but it's like the ceasefire doesn't mean anything if the progress isn't made towards trying to end this solution. It's like absence of violence is not peace. Like, I mean, at the end of the day, the Palestinian people, they've never experienced peace because their whole existence has been under occupation, under duress. Like, and so if you're not doing the things to try and remedy this, whether that's 2-state solution, 1-state solution, or I mean, I think that 2-state solution is obviously is obviously the best answer. But you know, if Israel doesn't do something, or the Israeli supporters, U.S., other people in the West and everything, this is gonna happen again in the next couple of years. You're going to have some massive attack, and then you're going to try and justify what you're doing to these people and everything. And also, I mean, this ties into also Russia and Ukraine and stuff. We've been talking about the language and stuff surrounding things. It's been so interesting seeing the media perception surrounding when it was happening to Ukrainians and what's been happening to it's brown people. Like, you know, it's like they live brown people and Muslim brown people at that. They do not get the same sympathy at all.
Nope.
Like at all. Like, you don't. And I think that's been so interesting to see, because that just shows you how much that, you know, you can't go against Israel. Like, you know, I mean, we've been talking about people who've been losing their jobs and stuff for speaking out and everything. I mean, I know one of the most prominent, I mean, this happened in the past, but Mark Lamont Hill, huge black scholar and everything. He said something about Palestine. He used to be on CNN and everything, bro. Like, the man pretty much got blackballed and stuff. And it's like, especially now, so many people are losing their jobs. People getting their tweets checked, can't get a job and everything.
That's why
like,
you gotta be real careful what you
really
say
do.
nowadays. If you're gonna speak out on something, if you're gonna, you know, stand for something, if you're gonna put your weight behind something, you gotta be prepared to, you know, deal with whatever consequences may come. That's one of my philosophies. But on top of that, if you're gonna say something, it's important to just make sure your information is accurate. That's all.
Absolutely.
Man, it's difficult,
Especially in the misinformation, disinformation age.
and that's the state of modern warfare today. It's truly an information warfare. So, you know, whatever primary sources you can get, trust the people on the ground, trust the people that have family there, trust the people that, you know, are actually credible journalists, not pushing a narrative. It's hard to discern that, but, you know, start questioning the integrity of the source, you know.
Yeah. I mean, and
See who has stake in the game, see who doesn't, you know, what's their background, what is their expertise in. If somebody is just confidently just peddling out or repeating talking points, they don't got no stake in the game. They're just doing what their boss told them. So that's really all I got to say.
yeah, I mean, and also just going off of that, talking about information, also know that state propaganda is very real.
Oh, it is.
And
it's both.
the people in power in these countries and stuff, especially the ones that control the power, is Israel in this situation. Watch what they will say, because they're trying to keep the support on their side, and as the support does start to dwindle a bit, not a lot, but they're going to continue to push out disinformation, not even just misinformation. They're going to create a whole different narrative for you to believe, not even wrong information. They're purposely creating untruthful information to try and, you know, to push their own narrative, and we have to be aware of that. Like, mind you, Palestinians have a narrative to push as well, but these are oppressed people and they don't have the same means, and we've seen what Israel will do to them and what they've done in the past.
And I guess I do have one more thought then. I guess it's like, you know, so I don't want to say this. It's like, and that's why it's important. I don't think there's necessarily a problem with waiting to speak on conflict. Now, when it comes to violence against oppressed people, there's no time to wait. I think you should speak early and often.
Especially if you have a platform.
Especially if you have a platform. It's important to spread awareness when there is, you know, a wrongdoing happening against people who have no stake in the game. Okay, if you don't want to speak out against Hamas, or you don't want to speak against the IDF, okay, cool, that's fine. You can be quiet on that. But if you can look at what's happening in Palestine and see actual statistics, actual credible, fact-proven statistics that says nearly 2,000 children dead, 6,000 innocent civilians dead as a casualty of war, and stay silent, and you don't think that's wrong, I look at you sideways.
You're on the wrong side of history.
You're on the wrong side of history.
Because once Palestine is free and everything, we keep a receipt. We keep a receipts of what side you was on, man, for real. And, you know, if you, again, and I'm gonna just close out with, you know, the famous quote and everything. If you're neutral in times of conflict or whatever, or, you know, you're just as bad as the oppressor and everything, because there really is no neutrality in a situation like this. Like, it's like, are you for the liberation of oppressed people, or are you for colonial powers just exerting their influence and exerting their power against a group that does not have the means and everything?
Exactly. So, yeah, man, that's what this platform is about. It's about liberation, it's about uplift, and it's about freedom.
It's about
freedom, you feel me?
changing perspectives through conversation, culture, and creativity.
Education, entertainment, everything in between. Appreciate you coming on here, man.